Weekly Sauce, episode 54. I wish the number 54 meant something to the Montreal Canadiens, but I have no idea. I think there was recently somebody wore 54, and I'm drawing a blank now. Was it Grabowski? Did Grabowski wear 54?
I don't know, man. We won the cup in 53, not 54.
There you go. So 54 means absolutely nothing to Montreal Canadiens. I can't think of one.
Terrible hockey number anyway.
Exactly. Brutal. Episode 54, as usual, it's brought to you by Mike's BBQ Rub MTL. Visit mikesbbqrubmtl.com and use Hot Sauce 10 for 10% off the entire site. Alex, how's it going, buddy? We got a special guest. I know you're very excited for this one.
I am super excited. Annakin, I've been listening to your songs when I was 15 years old, back in 2010. And I was super pumped with the Feels Like 93 song. And I truly thought we were going to win. But yeah, man, I'm just super excited. It's amazing.
So
That's awesome.
So we got Annakin Slayd on here. How's it going?
Thank you, guys. Nice to meet you guys. I'm at that point in my career where, I get people who tell me, I loved your stuff when I was a kid. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Your answer is, I was a kid when I wrote it. So how do you think I feel?
Right.
I don't know. Feels Like 93 was a good song. My favorite one was the Expos one. I'm forgetting the name now.
Remember,
yeah, that one was like, it gives me goosebumps.
Awesome.
From the one they used to play on TSN all the time, right? The kid
somebody was telling me about Feels Like 93, and that was like May 2010, and we started talking about how it's kind of endured, right? And how it's lasted all these years, and a shock to me. Obviously, when you bring these things out, you think, "Oh yeah, they're going to play it for a couple months, and then I'll get a couple of hits on YouTube, maybe some streams or whatever." There wasn't even streams back then, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And then all these years, people still want to listen to it. They want updates. They want all that stuff. And then I compared it to the Expos song, because that's another one that has endured, and like it's so important to like the Expos community. And I'm like, man, I did that in June 2010. So those two songs I did a month apart. I released them a month apart, and they both like still kind of like in the Montreal like zeitgeist or whatever, So it's cool.
I'll put it on YouTube sometimes when I'm like just like bored, and in the background music while I'm working, I'll put it on YouTube. I type in Annakin Slayd and I'll just press play.
So I always wonder, was your Feels Like 93 song your first ever song, or was it just not a song?
No, I had I've been doing music since 2000. My first actual single was 2005. So I had been doing it for 5 years already. I had a whole album out before that. It's called Stalwart Empire. You could still find it out there now. And so I had been doing stuff, but it was my first time I ever did a sports song, and I didn't, like I said, I didn't think much of it. I just put it out. I was inspired by what was going on. I'm like, whatever, let me do this thing, and maybe people will I remember thinking to myself, because I had been on Mitch Melnick's show on 690, 990 at the time for my original music, the music I had done before, because he supports local artists so much. And then I was like, you know what? Mitch likes me. If I do this Habs song, maybe he'll maybe he'll spin it on 990, and like the minute that he played it, I swear to God, within a half an hour and an hour, there was like on YouTube, there was like versions of the song popping up with compilations of Canadians and all this stuff. And I was like, okay, this is what viral is being like, like just seeing your stuff everywhere and being like, wow, I'm all over the place. I remember walking out of my house, and just being like, man, what if people recognize me and stuff like that? That first like feeling of like you've done something that people are watching and listening to, So again, like I didn't expect it to happen. I just did it for fun, and it turned into this whole thing. And all these years later and all these songs later, it's still kind of resonating. So it's cool.
Do you get recognized a lot?
Well, I mean, a lot. Sometimes back in those days, I would go to like bars and stuff and watch the games, and wherever if there's a concentration of Canadiens fans or Expos people, for sure, yeah. But once in a while, like I'll pull into a Starbucks, drive through, and this kid in the window will be like, "Hey, are you Annakin Slayd?" You know, like I used to listen to you when I was a kid. You know, this kid's like 20 now, so I was like, "Man, how young were you?" You know,
Man, in 2010 I was 24. So for me, it's like I think I was a kid back then. I didn't know how life worked when I was 24 years old.
Yeah, I wasn't much older than you, so like.
What part of the city are you from?
Well, I was born in St. Leonard, actually, and so my family was around that area, East End kind of area for the first like 5-6 years, and then we moved to Chamonix, like all Greeks were doing back then. Yeah.
You know, I never lived in Chamonix, but my dad lives in Chamonix now with my sister, and I was more of a West Island, half Park X, half West Island guy.
Right.
So
I got the full-on Chamonix Greek community experience, and went to Chamonix High School and did that whole thing. And so, and I lived in Laval until I moved out of my parents' house, and I actually moved to New York for a couple of years doing theater. I was into acting at that time, and then I came back here and started on music. So
I've noticed you have a Jean Béliveau, jersey picture behind you.
Yeah.
Is he your all-time favorite Canadian?
No. This a buddy of mine owns this company that does like woodworking, and then they do like prints on the woodworking, and so the Expos thing is also the same thing. And he just, I bought it to support his company, and also because it's Canadian stuff. And I mean, obviously, I think like all Canadians fans, there's a kind of worshiping of Béliveau and Rocket. I actually prefer the Rocket. He's more my type of like fiery, like, that sort of thing. But how can you not? Especially when he passed away, I think people who didn't experience him, in real life playing, I think we all kind of had a new appreciation for what he's done, and just the way it was all covered, and all the knowledge that we gained of him. And and me, but part of my job when I do these things is to just go through all this old footage, right, and just find all these cool moments in Canadians history. And like a lot of it is Béliveau, and you see a lot of the stuff, and you're like, man, this guy was beyond what we've ever experienced as fans, right? Like the class, the leadership, working hard, the numbers he put up even were more impressive than I think people realized. And so, he's kind of like, he's like one of the angels, one of the great ghosts who look over the franchise. So I put him in my room. I think it's good energy that I bring into the room.
How many articles of either Expos or Alouettes or Montreal Canadiens, how many articles of clothing, hats, pants, jackets, sweaters, how many? Don't count accessories like keychains and stuff.
Yeah. Like I would say overall, I'm contrary to what people probably think, I'm not a big like merch guy. Like what you see here is pretty much what I have. I have some stuff that from when I was a kid that I have. I have a couple of jerseys that are signed by the 1994 Expo team.
Oh, nice.
And I've been lucky, obviously, to go to all of these events that a lot of these guys are at. So I have one 1994 Expos, so I keep gathering signatures for that. And I have one 1981 jersey, so I gather signatures for that. And those are the only two real pieces of signed merch and stuff that I have. But, man, Expos hats, I think I have about 30. 30
oh man, that's I have like 30 hats, but it's all different. Like I have like hats, 3 Expos hats.
I probably have like 10 different Habs hats and like 30 like Expos caps. Like this one I got in LA.
That's a nice one. That's a really nice one.
I just found it in a store, and it had like,
I found actually it's funny you say that, because my favorite Habs hat, actually, I don't even know, I think I lost it in the move, but it was gray with a blue rim. And I think it was for the Montreal Children's Hospital, for the Habs Foundation, because it was kind of like it was as if it was drawn by a kid. The CH was drawn by a kid, and it had like a soft material on it. And I bought it for $10 in a bucket in Lids in Orange County. I saw a $10 bucket. I'm going through this bucket and I see this thing. I'm like, man, this is the best hat I've ever seen in my life. I gotta find it, man. I just remembered I had that hat.
Yeah, you got to look in the bins when you're outside of Montreal.
A $10 bin for a beautiful hat like that, and I'm like, you should be selling this at like $60. He's like, yeah, nobody's gonna buy that here. I'm like, okay.
The Expo's like this place it was in Westwood in LA, and man, they had a lot of Expos caps. They had like 4 or 5. I couldn't believe it.
Alex lives in Bakersfield. I doubt that they have a lot of Expos hats there.
I go down to LA sometimes.
Yeah, I've never been to Bakersfield, but I like some country music, so I like there's a song Bakersfield. That's a
Nobody goes to Bakersfield willingly.
big.
Alex moved there, and he was like, "Hey, I don't really want to go."
It's completely different from Montreal. It's tough. Anakin, I know you're a big Expos fan. I think you're one of the all-time big Expos fans I've ever not seen. You and
Mitch Melnick.
the other fan, well, and Perry. You know Perry?
Oh,
Yeah,
Perry.
Harry makes me look like an amateur. He's so good.
Yeah, he's intense, man. He's intense.
Yeah, he's intense.
Oh man.
The way Expos left, the Expos left was very left a lot of bitterness in the Expos fans' mouths, and I just want to know: do you believe that the Expos owner David Sampson and the whole family they did enough to keep the Expos, or they didn't?
Well, they definitely didn't do enough. I think it's pretty clear that they were never, dedicated to the idea of keeping the Expos in Montreal. I don't think they got up in the morning and say, "Okay, guys, how are we keeping the Expos in Montreal?" I think they saw it as a way to, get it to Florida or get it into an American market where they, A, felt more comfortable, B, probably could make a lot more money. So I think they did what they had to do. I think there's a common, listen, they're villains in a lot of ways, and there's no way around that. But I think there's the tendency about Expos fans to say that they were the cause of the team leaving, and they weren't. They were just the ones who put the final nail in the coffin.
Yeah.
I think the problems were way before that, and listen, I'm never gonna say anything nice about David Sampson in particular or Loria, because just ask Miami fans what they think about.
They feel the exact same way.
Right. So, I'm not going to defend them in any way, but I'm also not going to make them into these ultimate bad guys that stole our team from us. There were problems way before that, and anybody who was watching games at those times or went to the Big O knew that, there was talk about the team moving before Loria was in there. And, as the early night, even during the 94 season, it was kind of a comeback season. And the years before that, it was kind of like, man, we're in last place. I think in 91, nobody was coming. A big chunk of the Olympic Stadium fell off. A lot of people forget that. The 1991, a chunk of the Olympic Stadium fell off, and they had to play the rest of September on the road. Okay. So, if you're a dad and you got kids and you want to go to the Big O to watch a game, right? I'd be like, I don't know. I don't want to take my kids to this crumbling stadium, So there was already those kinds of problems rooted in the franchise, and it just kind of deteriorated. 94 was obviously terrible for us because there was so much hope, and it seemed like things were starting to turn around. And then when the Loria, and smartly, they came in and said, we have something. If we move it somewhere else, we can make something out of it, And they did what they had to do, I guess.
We had him on, actually. We have another show, our first show, because we run a little network here, and it's called Not Sauce for Work, and we interviewed David Sampson, actually.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and we asked him all these questions, did you just buy it to flip it, all these things, and he gave us all the good answers. And I don't hate the guy, but listening to him, he's a little bit of a snake oil salesman, and I basically told him in the interview, we both said it, we're what you did was you spent all this money on average players and all these things. What do you expect the fan base to think that you're trying to do? And he basically didn't have an answer. He kind of squirted around it, saying, "What did you expect us to do? We were tied up. We couldn't get a TV deal. Claude Brochu this, Claude Brochu that, Bronfman this, Bronfman that." So there was always pointing the finger everywhere else. And it came out to the point at the end of the interview, him and actually my co-host Pisa, they've bonded. They talk to each other all the time on Twitter and stuff. Now they've kind of built this weird friendship, and it's pretty interesting. But I don't hate the guy, but I also if his name was written down as a potential owner of the next Montreal Expos, or if it ever happens, then I would be extremely mad. And I'm kind of I'm a switched over Mets fan, but until the Expos come back, so. But either way, if he comes back, I doubt it would ever happen. But I would be really pissed, because he just leaves a bad taste in everybody's mouth here in the city.
did you ever hear Ariel Helwani?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's where we got that's where we just got the inspiration from, and then we DM'd him. Well, we kind of sent him a message on Twitter, and he's like, "I'll come on the show right now," and we spoke to him.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
wow,
Ariel ripped him.
Yeah, Ariel sent me personally the clip before it was up because he wanted me to hear it first. And he was like, dude, he's like, this was a dream come true. And like him and I laughed about it, and like I posted it, and like we got so much hate from people who were like, you know, oh, it's so petty what Ariel did. And I'm like,
why?
You will never understand. You know, that's the one thing I say to people. How many people have really experienced losing a team? You could lose a championship. You could lose your favorite player. You know, you could have heartbreaking games or whatever, but to actually have something so important to your life just like kind of ripped away from you, like very, you know, Seattle could relate with the Sonics because I think they had a really nice following. You know, but I mean, aside from that, can you name 5 cities, you know, in our generation? I'm not talking about Brooklyn Dodgers and stuff like that. Yeah. And people in Brooklyn still heard about that.
Well, the Browns the Browns switched over to the Ravens. Alex is a Ravens fan.
Browns, but they knew they were getting their team back. It was kind of like it's kind of just, you'll be okay. We at the time, you know, we thought that's it. We're never going to see baseball again. And like now we've got this kind of like hope going on, but like for a good 5, 6, 7 years, it was like, it's never coming back. Forget about baseball. So we all kind of had to like just forget about it, you know, think about the Habs. And, you know, I really think like if just thinking about it now, you think about 2010, that's 6 years after the Expos left. My fandom took a leap at that point. You know, I was always a big Canadiens fan, but it didn't compare to the Expos. The Expos were like my thing, you know, because I had seen 93, I'd seen us win a cup, you know, and all that stuff. I was into it. I loved it. I went to the parade, all that stuff. But for me, the Expos winning the World Series was like probably what it's like for Habs fans. You know, like you, Alex, you probably, you know, obviously you don't remember 93. You weren't even alive, I guess, right?
I was alive, I think, 6 months after they won.
There you go.
Yes, so, yeah, exactly.
So for you that feeling of the Habs winning the cup, it must be like, I don't know how that's going to feel, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And it's been so long, but honestly, I kind of feel that way too. Like just, you know, having this tease this year of like us, like, you know, we're in a place where you never know what can happen and we can win. And then I still think about that. I'm like, man, how's that going to feel? But at least I've experienced the Canadiens winning the cup. I've touched the cup. I've seen Patrick Roy holding it.
I'm jealous.
You know, in front of my face, you know, because they had actually a parade in Laval. They did 2 separate parades. They did one downtown, and I went to the one in Laval. And I remember, all the French Canadian players were there. Patrick Roy, Don Pouce, all those guys, and Patrick Roy had the Stanley Cup hanging out of the cart, you know, and all the fans were like touching it. And I remember touching the cup. I was like, I just touched the Stanley Cup. I couldn't believe it.
It's better than touching the Stanley Cup when you go to the Hockey Hall of Fame. Like it's just like it's there. You can touch it. You know?
Yeah, I got to touch it in LA too because I was in LA when the Kings won.
Okay.
And a buddy of mine had a friend who had a private party with the cup.
Oh, nice.
Like he just had his close friends come and he invited me, and I got to take pictures with it, hug it. I put a Habs cap in the bowl, you know, to give it good luck. And that was the year before we went to the conference final, or the year of the conference final. Sorry. So I feel like I give it a little bit of luck there.
And speaking of the Habs, let's talk about the current run. This current run got me excited, but until last game. So until last game,
of course, because they win 7 games in a row, they lose. All of a sudden, Alex is off the bandwagon.
No, I'm not off the bandwagon. That's what I'm saying.
You're typical Habs fan.
The whole fan base, not me, not the whole fan base, but Twitter has completely turned upside down on the Habs, saying, "Okay, this is over. We lost the first game. It's over." How do you feel about this current run, and do you think getting us to the finals is actually realistic?
Well, there's a lot of things I could say about this because you know, if you've experienced a lot of deep runs with your team, you know the ups and downs that can happen. You know, 1 second you feel like it's over, and the next second you're like, oh my God, we just experienced the same thing. Game 4 against Toronto, and I'm not exaggerating when I say this, it was the most embarrassed and heartbroken I had ever felt as a Habs fan, like for something that happened on the ice, like in terms of like how embarrassing it was for the team. I felt horrible. Like
Same feeling.
I'm a grown man, you know, and I was like, and I sat at the edge of my bed. I was like, oh my God, like what a terrible feeling to see that no hope. You saw them come out. They lost 4-0. The Leafs were all over us. Sure, Carey Price was good, but it looked like it didn't matter how good he was. We weren't going to win this series. I'm not going to pretend I sat there and be like, yeah, we're going to still win in 7. No, I gave up. I was like, this is over. I was thinking about how to not think about the Habs.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like fantasy football. Like, when can we start our draft? You know, I emailed my commissioner, my fantasy football. I'm like, yo, can you please like do the lottery so that I could start planning for my draft? That's how much I didn't want to think about the Habs. And then Game 5, I was like, you know what? At least win Game 5. And they won Game 5. Crazy overtime was fun. And then I was like, now at least we made a series out of it. If they lose in 6, I won't feel as embarrassed. We win Game 6. I'm like, okay. Game 7, I'm still in my head. I'm thinking, you know what? How many times is Toronto going to blow a Game 7? This is the year that they don't blow it. You know, that's what I'm thinking in my head. I'm psyching myself out. I'm like, this is the year that they're not going to blow it. And then, boom, we win again. And I'm like, my God. And then Jets, same thing. I'm like, they worked hard. The Jets have been rested. Jets are going to do away with us. We sweep, you know? And now here we are. We've lost 1 game in this series.
And everybody's off the bandwagon.
Our best defenseman is out, okay? So that's one thing, right? So our best defenseman is out. And here we are talking about, like, do we have a chance? I'll tell you what, if Petrie doesn't come back, no, we don't have a chance. I don't see that happening. Petrie has to come back 100%. But somebody tweeted the other day, like the Kings beat the Habs 4-1 in Game 1 of the finals in '93.
Oh.
And everybody said this Kings team, Gretzky, Nick Sorley, the list, Gary Curry, the list of guys, Rob Blake, these young, strong defensemen like Shea Theodore and guys like that. Nah, the Canadians, they don't have a chance. You know.
So we've seen a Pacioretty's elbow yesterday to Ben Chirard, and lots of Habs fans, you know,
you should be suspended for the rest of the playoffs.
No, not suspended, but sure, at least got
kicked out of the league. Kicked out of the league. It's irreprehensible.
Like, I'm not sure how you feel about Pacioretty, Anakin, but I've never been a huge fan of him.
I don't think you're going to get Anakin to talk shit about Patches.
Listen, I know Max, like, personally because of the whole MTL stand-up. He was, like, super, like, how do I say, grateful that I had made the song, and his family contacted me. And I'm not saying this that you can't talk shit about him. Like,
yeah.
Go ahead.
We're
like,
Habs fans. You have to talk shit about players.
Like, go ahead. But, like, for me, listen, do I love Pacioretty as a player? He's not my favorite kind of player. Like, I think we've seen the good and the bad with Pacioretty from him being here so long. Do I think he's a dirty player? No. I think you have to put that in context too. Like, Charo was on his ass
all game.
You know, like I remember saying, before he elbowed him, I was like, oh my God, Charod's going right after Pacioretty, and he gave him a couple of good whacks. So listen, the guy's got to defend himself. I'm not gonna fault him for that. It was a rough game. It was you know, but I didn't see anything that made me feel like Vegas was playing super dirty. I think Sherratt should not be firing the puck all the way across the ice over the glass.
That
would help us.
Yeah.
I remember early in the Toronto series, there was a lot of those over the glass penalties delayed
against them.
Yeah. No, but we had a couple too, I think.
Yeah, with Sherratt. Yeah,
I think either Game 1 or Game 2, there was like, we had 2 or 3 in the same game. And I was like, Edmondson did it. Sherratt did it. Right.
Forgot who else.
I vaguely remember that, but I know I remember saying to myself, if you're going to take a penalty, you know, like Dano's penalty last night, you could take that penalty because you're battling for the puck. You don't want him to go at the net, so you got to get your free arm a little bit in there. But listen, over the glass penalties with this defense on the point, the way they fire the puck, you're not going to win like that. So
it was a tough look. It was last night was a lot of the things they got away with in Winnipeg. They didn't get away with in Vegas. Vegas, their game plan was actually exactly what the Habs did against the Jets. They didn't let anything in the slot. They all their shots came from the outside. You know, I mean, they just played kind of the way the Habs played against the Jets, and it was successful. And also, they roll 4 lines, and their 4 lines are better than most, man. Like they're stacked.
Listen, what I think you're going to see happen is what happened late in the Toronto series. They're going to roll the top 4 for 30 minutes each. You know, you're going to see these guys play 28 to 30 minutes. Weber, Sherratt, Edmondson, and hopefully Petrie. Because you can't roll Kulak for 28 minutes. You can't roll even Merrill for 28 minutes. So
Gustafsson even.
Romanov.
Romanov played good last night, though, but I don't know. Deep into his series, I don't know how well he do.
You could try, but I don't think this coaching staff is going to do that with him. I think they'd rather put a guy like Merrill out there. But listen, they have to. They're going to have to do that to win a series, and it all depends on if Petrie, plays. So, am I going to say the Habs are going to win? I don't know. I have to see what Petrie looks like and if he's ready to play. But I think we know that the series is not over and to not count them out. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and then back to Alex, is what Alex said about Pacioretty is that we're both me and Alex are kind of on the same page here, and about Patches, like he's a great player, like we know he's a good player, talented, all that stuff, but he kind of just disappears in big moments, and he disappeared yesterday against the Habs. But hopefully he stays disappeared so we can for the rest of the series, so we don't have to because when he's on, it's hard to see. There aren't many Americans better than him, that's for sure.
Well, I have my boy, like you guys, I'm sure, talk hockey all the time. Like, and I said right before game 1 last night, I'm like, how much you want to bet Pacioretty doesn't score 1 goal in the series?
It's a good bet.
You know, I wouldn't be surprised, and they took it. He had 1 good shot that I think he just went wide.
He was like in the corner. He kind of turned and ripped it. It was his only shot on net all game,
Yeah, exactly. So would I be surprised if Pacioretty is completely taken? That whole line wasn't really great, right? Like Mark Stone, I think he had a screen on the first goal. But aside from that, you didn't see much of Stone and you didn't see much of Pacioretty. So I'm not afraid of that top line. What really scares me is their D. Shea Theodore and Pietrangelo, these guys are good players.
And from
us, you have Alec Martinez, who he's
the playoff performer of all time.
I was at that game where he scored.
He's at Game 7. There you go.
I was at that game, so I've seen the guy come up in big moments. So they're a little scary, I'm not going to lie.
So, Annakin, we asked this to all our guests, and since you're from Montreal, you're a big Montreal personality. What is your favorite restaurant, and what is your go-to place for poutine?
Oh, God. Well, this is going to be the lamest response probably.
If you just don't say Bonkies.
I know. I've never been into that fancy stuff. So, like when I love LaFleur's, man. That's where I go.
It's a pound for pound one of the best.
Dude, like you could talk about all this fancy poutine all you want, and LaFleur's, like, I live in the South Shore and there's one right here, and I just go, and like I don't need anything else when I have that, And even Bell Pro is not bad,
it depends on the Bell Pro you go to, but for the most part, they're all pretty good.
Greek cooking, it's going to be good.
Yeah, exactly. In 2010, you were writing songs for the Expos and the Habs. In 2010, I did my buddies challenged me to eat 100% in 1 year, so I did. I ate 101 actually, and just to spite them, because fuck that.
All is spiked.
Yeah, my favorite ones, the Carry hot dog. That's, for me, it's like number one. Right. It's the one that I grew up with when I was playing football at Vanier. It was always the one I used to eat after practice.
Nice.
And then there's Paulon Suzanne. Can't be wrong with that. And then Chez Claudette is like one that not many people know about. Chez Claudette is legit. Yeah,
Chez Claudette.
Ma Poule Mouillée is like the new one, the new styles there. Ma Poule Mouillée is good, but it's part of the fancy that you don't like, so I don't know.
Yeah, Orange Julep too, man. Don't forget.
Orange Julep is good. They got that thick, dark sauce.
Good. Orange Julep is good, yeah. But those other ones, I don't think I've ever tried them. So maybe I'll need to take a list and I'll do a little.
Wait, you're from Chamonix? You never heard of Paulon Suzanne? It's like right off the bridge. It's across from Sacré-Cœur Hospital on Gouin.
No.
No?
It's not my hood.
Oh, I'm surprised.
Yeah. But, yeah, give me a list, man, because I'm not going to eat 100 in a year.
But it's what's your go-to eating spot other than Pooters?
Man, God, a go-to eating spot. It's been so long since I've gone anywhere. I don't know. I'm not
these walls.
I know this is a very un-Montreal thing to say, but I'm not a big. not a big restaurant guy. I don't like to sit down and have to wait for my food and like, and be too social all the time. I love sushi. I'm just getting to know this area here. I'm in St. Lambert in the South Shore, and I just moved here, so I'm still getting to know this area. But I mean, yeah, I'm not. I gotta say, it's a bit. People ask me all the time, like, "Hey, I'm coming to Montreal. What restaurants do you suggest?" I like go on like MTL blog and like get a list. Like, here you go.
just tell them Bed Province, and that's the best description.
Right.
Steamies and Pouters. That's it.
Yeah, the Steamies and all day on that, and I try to eat better now. Like I can't eat like I used to, but man, like when I'm hungry, I'm like, boom, LaFleur's, let's go.
You know what? I usually prepare trivia questions for our guests, but for some reason I just completely forgot to set up these, and it's such a shame. Anakin, I would love to have you on again, and we'll do like a trivia for Habs and Expos. But a couple last questions. If you had to pick between a Stanley Cup today or a World Series from the Expos, what would it be? Stanley Cup for the Habs, World Series Expos.
Oh my God! You know why this is a really tough question? I'll tell you because if you told me this in 2000, easy choice, Expos all day. Because, like I said, I had just experienced the Cup, so we're only 7-8 years removed. Whatever, I've already done that. But now, it's like if the Expos were to come back, they wouldn't mean the same that they meant to me when I was a kid. Like not to say it's not going to mean a lot. It's going to be great. But baseball is different. It's not the same game that I grew up with. There's a lot of like subtleties that I find it harder to watch baseball now. Maybe because I'm not emotionally invested, but just the things like the box around the catcher. Like I just like, well, get that. I want to go like this on the screen. Come on, man. Do that for it. And just the way the game is played now. We grew up with guys like Marquise Grissom and Delano Shields playing small ball. Felipe Alou is the kind of manager, bunting, squeeze plays, all those stuff that makes baseball fun because you never know what's going to happen. Now you're like, okay, either the guy's going to strike out, he's going to hit a home run. There's nothing in between, And it's kind of like I don't have the same passion for baseball. But, man, I'm going to say I have to say the Expos. I just have to say it. I feel like it's really closer than it has ever been. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, it would have been a no-brainer. Now it's really a lot closer because of just how things have changed. And maybe I'm in the moment too because I love this Habs team. And, I think we've all kind of like fallen in love with them. 2 months ago, we were probably like, oh my God, fire Bergevin, retool around the young players and all that. And now you look at them and it looks like they took a 5-year step in 2 months, And so I really want this team to win. But, the Expos is something I've never experienced. And even if it's not the baseball that I know, I think it would just be like so much poetic justice and like just this great romantic, like great thing if we just won the World Series, even all these years later. So I'll say Expos.
All right, it's a good answer, honestly, because I think it's the same thing for me because it's never been done, right? It's like the one, and imagine it happened. We go Blue Jays, Expos, all three. Changes the landscape of baseball forever.
We really thought it was going to happen. It just seemed they were dominating. Like again, Alex, you didn't experience it, but like they were dominating in July and August. Man, they were treating teams like they were their bitch, man. Like, they would say stuff like that too. Like you talk to these. I got the opportunity to talk a lot of these guys, Moises Alou, Pedro, all these guys, and they all say the same thing. When a team came to the Big O and we were going to play them, we knew we were going to win. That's what they said all the time. We knew we were going to win. We knew they didn't stand a chance, And it was like we've never even experienced that in any sport, in any sport in this town. For probably since the 70s Canadians, we have not experienced that kind of domination. And the 94 team was a brief period. But for 2-3 months, they were a dominating team, and it's hard to think that they wouldn't have at least gone to the final.
Yeah,
and that was all taken away from us. So to win it, even if it wasn't those guys, it would still be sort of like justice.
Okay, so 2 last questions, and it's in the same kind of genre. Who's your favorite Expo of all time? Who's your favorite Hab of all time? Other than unless it's Maurice Richard that you already answered that.
Yeah, no, I mean I'm assuming more guys that I've seen. Yeah, with the Expos, it's a pretty easy choice with Carter. Like for me in 1992 when Carter came back, I didn't remember him as with his original time. But when he came back, he had that, Carter had that Belleville lore. Like you didn't have to see him to know what he meant to baseball and to the city, and so when he came back in 1992, it was kind of like I fed off that, and I was like, this guy's like a god for baseball in Montreal, and even though he didn't play much that year, the buzz around him coming back in his last game and how he went out with the double over Andre Dawson's head and all that stuff, that was a great baseball moment for me, a great sports moment. Probably my favorite sports moment that I ever got to see live was Gary Carter's last game. So he's definitely my number one. I mean, I made a song for the guy, for God's sake.
Yeah.
Habs, I've always had trouble with this one because I love so many Habs, and there's not really one that stands out. Carbo to me is up there because I love the kind of player that he is. I love the two-way aspect. I love that he shut down Gretzky in the final, and he's a super nice guy too. And he has, he should be, his number should be retired. I want to say that now because he has 2 cups and he's in the Hall of Fame.
Two Selkies,
2 cups, Hall of Fame. Why is, I know this is a longer discussion and I don't want to go into it, but like we all talk about like Saku, and I love Saku. He's one of my favorite.
Right. Yeah, he's mine. Yeah, he's my guy.
Top 5 for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. But as much as I think one day his number should be retired. But there's a few guys that you have to consider before him, and I think Carbonneau is one of them because of what I just said, the Cups and the Hall of Fame. And there's guys like Jacques Lemaire, and
Cornway.
Cornway is retired. Shutt.
Sorry, I always mix up Cornway and Shutt. Always.
Yeah. Shutt's a great. How many cups? I think he's number 2 all-time scoring, or he's in the top 5 anyway.
Yeah.
These are great players, and I would love to one day see Saku up there, and Carey Price too, obviously, where they're going to be talking about him retiring his number, all that stuff. But I mean, Carbo to me he's the true. I love guys like that, soft-spoken but leaders. They go out there, they work their ass off. Like Dano's like that too. Like he has that kind of
vibe, yeah.
Aura to him. He couldn't score like Carbonneau, can't score like Carbonneau, but he's got that thing. But Carbo, Saku, man, so many good players. I love PK, of course. PK's on my list.
Oh, that's a good question then. Good trade? Bad trade?
Oh my God!
I'll tell you where I stand right after.
How to get into that? Oh my God!
I think I know where you stand on this, and we're going to disagree.
I think you can't judge trades. Not even now. I don't think you're in position to. Anybody's in position to judge it.
There's a whole website built on how Weber is better than PK. PKSubbanTracker.com. You should check it out. It'll tell you. It'll change your opinion right away.
Well, it's not all numbers, and I don't know. Like they had the same numbers this year, so I'm not really sure if you're talking about points. They had the exact same amount of points.
This year.
Yeah. But listen, they're different players. They're different kinds of players. I think we could use a guy like PK right now. It would be nice to have a guy who can move the puck.
Imagine he came back for this run. That would have been nuts. That would have been nuts.
Just takes off the jersey. Devil's jersey. Oh my God! Here you go. Yeah. Hey, it's not out of the. If Bergevin wasn't the GM, I would say, hey, when his contract is up, you never know. But it's never going to happen with Bergevin.
But he's always going to get money because of who he is. So it's going to be tight. He's always going to get a high paycheck because of what he brings.
He has a job at ESPN now.
Yeah,
NBC.
He's lining it up for his future, and that's smart. I mean, it's a no-brainer. The guy's he's gonna be an analyst when he retires.
Of course, yeah.
But listen, you could go. There's so many aspects to what makes a trade a win and what doesn't. There's the intangibles too, like what they bring to your community, and obviously, PK has the clear lead on that.
Second to none.
Like, and that's part of why he's my favorite player. It's not necessarily what he did on the ice, although he does have. Listen, he has some great moments that I like. I like Shea Weber a lot. Like, and to me, I don't. It's not a way to say I don't like Shea Weber. I like PK. To me, they're both great players in their own way. But that goal that he scores against Boston out of the penalty box, you could argue of our generation, that's the best like Habs on ice moment. Like that was as great, as loud as.
Was that the one where he started like pointing to the crowd?
No, did he? I don't know.
He did a little finger play. I think it was that goal. I could be wrong.
Probably. I mean, he jumps out of the box and Eller just kind of feeds it to the blue line, and he just everybody. I don't know if you guys remember it, but I remember watching it, and I was like, there was zero doubt that he was going to score.
Yeah.
You know, like everybody was like, "Oh, here it comes," and the crowd just waited. And like, if you want to like feel that bliss again, I watch it sometimes on YouTube because it's amazing.
Well, I'm watching PK highlights, goosebumps, man, because the guy was such a showman, he was such a personality. The hit, I think it was on Marchand. I'm pretty sure it was on Marchand, where he turned his back and he smacked him.
Yeah, it was Marchand.
Like Subban was fantastic, but like when the trade,
at the point, he scored at the point in Game 1.
Yeah,
in overtime, he won that. And then the year before when they lost. Or 2011, the MTL stand-up year, he tied the game in the last 2 minutes on a shot from the point, and they lost in overtime, Game 7. So he's got a lot of these great like moments. And I know Weber's not that kind of player, but there's something about the big moments that PK was always great at. And look, he's been to a final, and he's been to a conference final with Nashville. So how do you measure what's a good trade?
He went to a cup final. Oh no, they lost to Vegas that year. Did they?
No, they went to the Cup final against Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I vividly remember. I was watching that game. I think it was Game 6 when they lost, and I was at the casino and I was watching the game on like the big virtual roulette screens there where everybody was watching, and I'll never forget like PK kind of like leaning over the bench. Like, whenever I look at the losing team in the Stanley Cup, they all look like I'm never gonna win a cup. Like that's the way they feel in the moment. It's like it's never gonna, because it's such a hard tournament to win. They work so hard to get to that point that it's just like they get so deflated, man. It's crazy.
And any player that's retired will tell you when you're there, you better value it, because there's the trap is that you think, okay, we're here this year, it means I'm gonna be here again, and oftentimes they never get there again. Look at Joe Thornton, the poor guy, man.
Gotta love Jumbo Joe. But in the moment, I like the trade because I think the Habs needed a guy like Weber. I mean, not that PK is replaceable, because a guy like what PK used to do was replaceable. In the best world possible, we would have traded maybe a first round pick and a prospect for Weber. But realistically, the trade was done, and I don't think it was a bad trade. I think PK benefited from it. I think his career benefited. I think people outside of Montreal respected PK a lot more after they saw his success that he had in Nashville, especially that next year when he got a couple Norris Trophy votes. So like, and he has a Norris Trophy with the Habs, So I mean, I've always loved PK, but I love the trade because Weber is the type of guy that I like. So that's basically what it comes down to.
And I think that's it. I think it's what you value in your players, because in terms of the productivity or what's happened since PK's traded, you can't exactly be like too happy with it. This year is the exception. But it hasn't been great since he got traded. So if you're doing player to player, it depends like what kind of players you like and what you think is more important that player brings to the game. So if put it this way, if they hadn't traded Sergachev right after, I probably wouldn't hate the trade as much. Well, I don't hate the trade, but it would have been much more of easy to swallow, because I remember when they drafted Sergachev, I'm like, well, he did the right thing. You traded a puck-moving defenseman, you got another one back. Yeah. And then he traded that guy for a guy who's not even playing now.
He's on jet skis. He's on jet skis with his trainer. Like that's basically what he's doing. Yeah, 100%.
We could use him right now. We could use a guy who could move the puck.
Yeah, a little bit of depth that can move the puck. But yeah, I mean, it's Sergachev. That was the dumbest trade. Like that's the worst trade in Habs history, including Patrick Roy. Like no joke.
Yeah, it's up there.
Because at least you got prospects for a while. Yeah.
If you take away all the dumb trades, we could have McDonough and
McDonough
we could be Tampa right now. Really,
Sergachev, McDonough. Yeah, I mean, fuck. Then we see a couple Montrealers on their team doing well, and it's like, what are you gonna do, man? What are you gonna do?
Watch those things. But then you look at teams like the Jets, and you're like, man, it must have been hard to watch Sherratt beating up all their players.
It's true. I never even thought of that.
Scoring these clutch goals and stuff like that. It must have been hard for them. So, every team's got those things, and sometimes you want to play victim. And we can all agree on one thing. At least we're not the Leafs.
At least we're not
yes.
the Leafs. We'll end it. We'll end it there. Anakin, I appreciate it working. Oh, sorry.
Anakin, one last thing before we let you go. What is the series prediction? Who wins and how many games?
Damn. Well, I'm obviously going to say Habs because that would be a terrible thing to put out in the world to not say that. So the Habs are going to have to win in 7. I think it's pretty clear. I think, like I said, you're going to have to really double shift all those defensemen if you get all 4 of them back. That's my if. If Petrie comes back, Habs in 7. I have to say if Petrie looks terrible or he doesn't come back at all, I just don't think we have a chance. But what was the other question you asked? The prediction and
prediction, yeah.
Well, yeah, who wins and how many games? Yeah.
Oh, and how many games? Yeah. Okay. So I'll say if Petrie comes back, Habs in 7. If he doesn't, Vegas in 6. But let's say Habs in 7.
Yeah, I'm looking more like a Vegas in 5. You know, if Petrie doesn't come back, but if he comes back, it's a game changer for sure. Annakin, where can everybody reach you? What do you have coming up? Any of that
well, right now you can see the new update of Rock the Sweater just went out yesterday, so it should be all over the place. YouTube, all my social is the same, at Annakin Slayd. Instagram, Twitter. I'm starting to do TikTok, which is weird, but I'm doing it. No dancing. I don't
because
dance.
You're not 15 years old, right?
Right.
That's why it's weird. Yeah.
No, you know why? Because I don't follow anybody, right? So I'm zero. So the stuff that they feed to me, it's like either Habs or like hot girls. Habs, hot girls. Like that's my whole. I'm like, why? Because I'm a male. Like all I want to see is like. I mean, I don't hate it, but I'm just saying it's Habs and hot girls. That's TikTok for you. And so all those things. And I got a new album that is actually finished. And so I'm just kind of waiting for the timing because I don't want to put it out now because I want to focus on the Habs stuff. But win or lose, I think it's going to come out right after. So if you like my Habs stuff and you want to hear other stuff that I do that's not sports related, it's still good. I promise you. Look out for the new album and subscribe to my YouTube because you'll see all that stuff there.
Perfect. We'll tag your YouTube as well, and I would love the contact for the wood print that you have in the back there. I would love to get something for the office. Yeah.
And I want the list of Poutine. So.
Oh, I'm gonna send you that right now.
Oh yeah.
So as usual, this episode is brought to you by Mike's BBQ Rub. Visit Mike's BBQ Rub MTL.com and use hot sauce 10 for 10% off the entire site. They have the truffalo sauce out. They have the mustard truffle sauce, which is unbelievable. Annakin, you got to try it. Truffalo mustard truffle sauce, unbelievable. Hot sauce 10 for 10% off the entire.
I had the Ghost Bourbon yesterday. It's amazing.
It's good. It goes bourbon. You just put it on some fries if you want to. Yeah,
amazing.
It's really good. I use it to
sick.
I use it to marinate the
ribs right now. So you guys are making me hungry.
Good stuff. We appreciate it, Alex, as usual. Peace.
Peace.
Go. When I'm feeling low, so I get a lift from a 4 When you see I got a lot of weapons in my arsenal, I got them all from a 21 Carbonal. When I gotta be clutch and win it the hard way, I rock my 28 Deja Dang. When I'm looking for a little refinement, you probably see me rapping number 29 driving. When I gotta be the one who saves the day, I go and pull out my 15 KK. When I need to muster up a little character, I'm in your face with my 1-1 Gallagher. Yeah, when I need to give my squad a boost, I come through with my Caulfield 22. I'll be MVP for life. When you see me rock my 3-1 price. When I'm feeling like I just might fall apart, put 11 on my back and a C on my heart. Can't separate a Habs fan from a sweater. That's why I rock number 9 forever. We rock the sweater, we rock it proud. Rock like Carrier, we rock it loud. Tell them that say Ash go, and let the whole world know that we rock the sweater, we rock it proud. Rock like Carrier, we rock it loud. Red, blue, and white flags fly, cause it's feeling like 25. Come on, go. Habs go. Yeah, come on, Habs Empire. We wanna raise that cup up high. Go. Habs go. Keep singing Habs for life, cause it's feeling like 25. Go. Habs go.
They both swat at that loose puck now. Caulfield gets it loose up front. Score! Toffoli! Tyler Toffoli! And the Canadiens are on for the Stanley Cup semifinal.
Go, 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 go. Yeah, Habs go. Yeah, come on, Habs Empire. You ready to rock? rockin' proud, y'all.